Jessica Carter. Sensuar. People like to say, Christmas brings families together. I used to believe that too. Every December. No matter how difficult the previous year had been, I convinced myself that maybe this would be different. Maybe this would finally be the holiday where my mother looked at me without finding something to criticize. Instead, Christmas became the day I realized I would never allow my daughter to grow up hearing the same words that shaped my childhood. Even writing this now, my hands still tremble. My daughter had just turned 8 months old. She had entered the world 6 weeks too early. Those first 3 weeks after her birth are burned into my memory forever. The constant beeping of monitors, the bright lights of the NICU, the helpless feeling every time I had to leave the hospital without her. I remember standing beside her tiny incubator, promising that if she came home healthy, I would spend the rest of my life protecting her. Thankfully, she did. Today she's healthy, energetics, and hitting every milestone exactly when her pediatrician expects her to. She's just small, about the 15th percentile for weight. Her doctor has repeated over and over that she's perfectly healthy. My boyfriend, Ethan, and I are both on the shorter side. So, genetically, it isn't surprising, but my mother has never trusted anyone else's opinion if it disagreed with hers. Growing up, she criticized everything. My grades weren't high enough. My clothes weren't fashionable enough. My college choice wasn't prestigious enough. My career wasn't impressive enough. When I introduced Ethan to her, she spent dinner asking whether he made enough money to support me. As if I wasn't perfectly capable of supporting myself. Nothing was ever enough. Still, some foolish part of me believed becoming a mother might change her. Maybe seeing me with a child would soften her. Maybe she'd finally see something she couldn't criticize. I should have known better. Christmas dinner was hosted at my parents' house that year. The living room glowed with white lights wrapped around an enormous tree. Nearly 15 relatives crowded inside. My older brother and his wife, my aunt and uncle, several cousins, my grandmother. The kitchen buzzed with laughter while Christmas music played softly in the background. For a little while, everything actually felt normal. Everyone wanted to hold the baby. My cousins laughed every time she giggled. My aunt commented on her bright blue eyes. Even my grandmother teared up while rocking her gently. I watched my daughter smile at everyone and thought maybe this holiday would become one of those memories I'd treasure forever. Then my mother asked to hold her. The room didn't change immediately. Neither did my mood. She smiled as she took the baby into her arms for perhaps 10 seconds. Then I watched her extend my daughter outward, holding her almost at arm's length, not lovingly, critically, like she was examining fruit at a grocery store. She frowned. She's so tiny. No one answered. My mother tilted her head. Is she eating enough? Another uncomfortable silence. Then came the sentence that froze every conversation in the room. She looks malnourished. It felt as though someone had sucked all the air out of the house. Forks stopped moving. Conversations ended mid-sentence. Even the Christmas music suddenly seemed too loud. My aunt forced an awkward smile. She's adorable, she offered quickly. Every baby grows differently. My mother ignored her. No. Seriously, she continued, while studying my daughter. Look at her. She looked around the room for agreement. When your brother's children were this age, they were almost twice this size. She turned toward me. Have you had her tested? Maybe something's wrong. Heat rushed into my face. Mom, I answered carefully. Her pediatrician says she's perfectly healthy. She's just petite. She laughed. That laugh? The same dismissive little laugh I'd heard since childhood, whenever my opinions disagreed with hers. Doctors don't know everything. She shook her head slowly. I'm just saying she doesn't look right. Then she narrowed her eyes. Her head looks too big for her body. It's not normal. My daughter stared up at her, completely unaware of what was being said. She couldn't understand the words, but I could. Every single one landed like a knife. Ethan wasn't beside me anymore. He'd gone into the kitchen a few minutes earlier to grab drinks for everyone. He hadn't heard the conversation unfolding. My brother's wife tried again. I think she's beautiful. Some babies are naturally smaller. My mother didn't even acknowledge her. I'm worried, she insisted. As her grandmother, I have every right to be concerned. Then she looked directly at me. Maybe if you'd taken better care of yourself during pregnancy, she wouldn't have come so early. Everything inside me stopped. For a split second, I couldn't hear anything. Not the music, not the chatter, not even my own heartbeat. All I could see was my daughter. The same daughter I'd spent countless nights praying would survive. The same little girl I'd blamed myself for not being able to protect before she was even born. Those weeks in the NICU had already filled me with enough guilt to last a lifetime. And now my own mother was throwing it back in my face. In front of everyone. On Christmas. I stood. No dramatic speech. No yelling. I simply walked across the room. My mother looked confused. As I gently lifted my daughter from her arms, she actually tightened her grip for half a second before letting go. I kissed my daughter's forehead. Then I walked into the living room. Our diaper bags sat beside the stack of presents. I began packing. Bottles, blankets, extra clothes, pacifier. Every movement was calm, deliberate. Behind me, I heard my mother follow. What are you doing? I didn't answer. She laughed again. Oh, don't be so sensitive. I'm just expressing concern. I zipped the diaper bag closed. Finally, I looked directly into her eyes. This is her last Christmas here. For the first time all evening. She seemed genuinely surprised. Then she smiled. Oh, please. You're being dramatic. No, I replied quietly. I'm finally taking you seriously. You just called my daughter malnourished. You insulted her appearance. You blamed me for her premature birth. You did all of that in front of our entire family. I'm done. My father hurried over. Jessica. Honey. Your mother didn't mean it that way. Let's calm down. It's Christmas. I looked at him. She meant every word. She always does. I picked up the gifts Ethan and I had brought. I gathered the presents. Relatives had lovingly chosen for our daughter. Only one pile remained untouched beneath the tree. The gifts from my mother. She stared at them, then back at me. Wait. You're seriously leaving. It's Christmas dinner. You can't just walk out. I adjusted my daughter against my shoulder. Watch me. Ethan walked into the room carrying a tray of drinks. His smile disappeared immediately. He looked from me, to my mother, to the stunned silence filling the house. Jess, we're leaving. He didn't argue. He set the drinks down without asking questions. Within 10 minutes, we were in the car. Neither of us spoke during the drive home. Only our daughter filled the silence with tiny babbles from her car seat. Blissfully unaware that anything had happened, tears blurred my vision. Not because I regretted leaving, because I'd spent 32 years believing my mother might someday change, and once again, I had been wrong. Over the next week, my phone never stopped buzzing. Text after text poured in. I can't believe you ruined Christmas. You're keeping my granddaughter away over nothing. I was only being honest because I care. My father sent only one message. Please call your mother. My brother texted separately. He admitted he understood why I'd left. But then he added that maybe I should be the bigger person so future holidays wouldn't become awkward. I didn't answer anyone. Ethan finally understood the full story after I showed him every message. He looked horrified. I had no idea she said all that. He admitted. I was in the kitchen. I'm with you. Completely. I appreciated his support, but deep down, I had a feeling Christmas hadn't been the end of this nightmare. It was only the beginning. 5 days passed after Christmas, and my mother sent more than 30 messages. Some were angry, some were tearful. A few pretended to be apologies. I'm sorry you misunderstood me. I'm sorry you're choosing to see concern as criticism. I'm sorry Ethan has convinced you to turn against your own family. Not once did she say the only words that mattered. I'm sorry for what I said about your daughter. Instead, every message twisted the situation until she became the injured party, and I became the cruel daughter punishing her for caring too much. The message that finally made me laugh was the one accusing me of poisoning my daughter against her. My daughter was 8 months old. She could barely crawl without tipping sideways. She had no idea what betrayal meant. Still, I didn't respond. Ethan and I spent New Year's Eve at home. We ordered takeout, put our daughter to bed early, and planned to watch the countdown from the couch. Neither of us wanted noise, crowds, or another family gathering. For the first time since Christmas, I almost felt calm. Then, headlights swept across the living room wall. A car pulled into our driveway. I glanced at the clock. A little after 7, Ethan looked through the front window, and his entire expression changed. It's your mom. My stomach dropped. Before I could say anything, the doorbell rang. Then it rang again, and again. I was feeding the baby. So Ethan went to the door. He opened it only a few inches. My mother stood on the porch wearing a red coat, holding a glittering gift bag. She smiled as if nothing had happened. I'm here to see my granddaughter, she announced. It's a new year. We're starting fresh. Ethan kept one hand on the door. That's not going to work for us right now. Her smile vanished. Excuse me. You need to leave. I came all this way. You weren't invited. This is my daughter's house. It's our house. Ethan corrected. And Jessica doesn't want visitors. My mother pushed against the door, not metaphorically. She actually placed her hand against it and tried to force her way past him. Ethan stepped forward, blocking the entrance with his body. You cannot come inside. Her voice rose. I'm not some stranger. I'm her grandmother. You still need permission. The baby startled at the shouting. I lifted her against my shoulder and walked into the hallway. The moment my mother saw us, her face transformed. She began crying instantly, not quiet tears. Full, dramatic, sobbing. Jessica, please. I stopped several feet from the door. Mom, you need to go. Let me hold her for 5 minutes. No. It's New Year's Eve. No. Why are you being so cruel? Her voice cracked loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. I said one thing. You said several things. I was concerned. You called her malnourished. My mother opened her mouth, but I kept going. You said her head looked abnormal. You compared her to my brother's children? Then you blamed me for her premature birth. I never blamed you. You said if I had taken better care of myself, she might not have come early. That isn't what I meant. It is exactly what you said. She wiped tears from her cheeks. I'm a mother. Mothers worry. No, I replied. That's what you do. You criticize people and call it concern? She stared at me for one brief second. The crying stopped. Her face hardened. Then she noticed a curtain moving in the house next door. And the tears returned. I can't believe my own daughter is humiliating me like this. You came here uninvited. I came to fix the family. You came to get what you wanted. She stayed on her porch for nearly 10 minutes. alternating between begging, accusing, and crying. Finally, another car pulled up. My father stepped out. Apparently, she had driven over without telling him, and called only after Ethan refused to let her inside. He walked toward the porch with the exhausted expression of a man arriving to manage a familiar disaster. He didn't ask what had happened. He simply looked at me as though I were the problem. "Jessica, can't you just let her see the baby?" "No. It's 5 minutes." "No." He sighed heavily. "Your mother is devastated. She needs to leave." He shook his head, took her by the elbow, and guided her back toward the car. My mother looked over her shoulder. "This isn't over." The words were quiet, but I heard them clearly. She was right. By the next morning, the extended family had been mobilized. My aunt called first. She spoke gently, as if explaining something to a child. "Your mother has always been tactless. That doesn't make what she said acceptable. I know, but her heart is in the right place. Would you be okay with someone calling your grandchildren malnourished at Christmas dinner?" Silence. Then she sighed. "That's different." "How?" She didn't answer. My brother's wife sent a long text explaining that my mother had been crying every day. She described how difficult this situation was for her. For my mother, not for me, not for my daughter. My mother had somehow insulted a baby, blamed me for a premature birth, invaded our home, and still convinced everyone that she was the victim. Then my grandmother called. She was 78 and had always been the family peacekeeper. I loved her deeply. When she asked me to visit on Saturday, I agreed. I thought maybe she wanted to hear my side. Maybe she would understand. When I arrived, my mother was already sitting in the living room. She looked perfectly composed. No swollen eyes, no trembling hands, just a small, satisfied smile. I stopped in the doorway. "Did you know she would be here?" I asked my grandmother. My grandmother looked ashamed. "I thought if you two sat down together, this was an ambush. I just want my family back." Behind her, my mother crossed her legs. "See, she won't even try." I looked at her. "You want to try?" "Yes." "Then apologize." Her expression tightened. "A real apology." I continued. "Acknowledge what you said. Admit it was cruel. Admit you crossed a line." "I'm not apologizing for caring about my granddaughter's health." "Then there's nothing to discuss." I turned toward the door. My grandmother reached for me. "Jessica, please." I faced her. "I love you, Grandma." But this was not okay. My mother stood. "She's unreasonable. She's always been too sensitive." I looked back at her. "No. I've spent my entire life pretending your cruelty was sensitivity on my part. I'm not doing it anymore." Then I left. My grandmother called later that evening and apologized. She said my mother had begged for help and promised she only wanted a peaceful conversation. I told her I forgave her. But I needed her to understand that my mother would use anyone willing to help her regain control. The next stage began with gifts. The first package arrived Monday morning. Baby clothes. The note read, "For my precious granddaughter. Grandma loves you." The next day, a stuffed elephant arrived. Then an expensive activity center. Then designer blankets. Then a stroller we didn't need. Every gift came with a sentimental note written as if I were denying my daughter some sacred bond. At first, I donated them. Then I started returning them unopened. The delivery driver began recognizing the pattern. When another box arrived, he looked at me and smiled awkwardly. Another one. Another one. I thought the gifts were invasive. I had no idea how far she was willing to go. 3 days later, the pediatrician's office called. The receptionist sounded uncomfortable. She explained that a woman claiming to be my daughter's grandmother, had called asking to discuss her weight, medical history, and developmental progress. They hadn't disclosed anything, of course, but they wanted us to know. My hands went cold. My mother had contacted my daughter's doctor. She had tried to use medical professionals to prove that her Christmas insults were justified, for the first time since leaving my parents' house. I called her. She answered immediately. "You called our pediatrician." There was a pause. Then she said, "I was worried. You had no right. You won't let me see her. How else am I supposed to know she's okay? By trusting her parents? I am her grandmother. That gives you no authority over her medical care. I have rights." "No. You don't." My voice shook. But I didn't stop. "You are not entitled to my child. You are not entitled to information about her. You are not entitled to contact her doctors because you refuse to accept that you were wrong. You're acting unstable. Do not call anyone connected to my daughter again." She hung up on me. That evening, Ethan and I sat at the kitchen table after putting the baby to bed. Between us lay a notebook filled with dates, screenshots, delivery receipts, and notes from the pediatrician's office. This isn't just family drama anymore, Ethan said. I looked at the pages. Christmas, the porch, the ambush, the gifts, the doctor. Every time we created a boundary, my mother found a new way around it. "We need to put everything in writing," he said. I nodded. A formal letter felt dramatic, but my mother survived by rewriting history. If we didn't document every detail, she would eventually claim none of it had happened. So we began writing, and neither of us knew that the letter meant to end the conflict would push her into the most frightening escalation yet. We spent nearly 3 hours writing the letter. Every sentence had to be precise. No insults. No emotional exaggeration. No language my mother could twist into proof that I was unstable. We listed exactly what had happened at Christmas. The comments about our daughter's weight, the comparison to my brother's children, the accusation that my pregnancy choices had caused the premature birth. Then we documented everything that followed. The unannounced New Year's Eve visit, her attempt to force her way into our home, the pressure campaign through relatives, the ambush at my grandmother's house, the daily packages, the call to our pediatrician. Finally, we wrote our boundaries. There would be no visits until she gave a genuine apology. She would have no contact with our daughter unless Ethan and I were both present. She would stop involving relatives in the dispute. She would never contact our daughter's doctors, daycare providers, or anyone else involved in her care. Any unannounced visits would not be answered. Any attempt to enter our home without permission would result in the police being called. We sent the letter by email and certified mail. That might sound excessive, but I knew my mother. Without proof of delivery, she would eventually insist she had never received it. The certified copy was signed for the next afternoon. Her response arrived 2 days later. 3 pages, single-spaced. Not one apology. The letter began with a list of everything she claimed to have sacrificed for me. The nights she stayed awake when I was sick, the money she spent on school clothes, the vacations she took us on, the birthday parties she organized. As if basic acts of parenting had purchased permanent ownership of me. Then, she described me as difficult, oversensitive, ungrateful. She claimed I had always misinterpreted harmless comments and punished people for telling me the truth. According to her, Ethan had isolated me from my family and filled my head with ideas about boundaries. She wrote that he had changed me. The truth was that Ethan hadn't changed me. He had simply stood beside me when I finally changed myself. The last paragraph contained the threat. She was consulting an attorney about grandparents' rights. I read that sentence twice. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so predictable. My mother had failed to shame me. She had failed to force her way into our house. She had failed to recruit enough relatives to pressure me into surrendering. So now, she wanted the law to give her what I would not. Ethan didn't laugh. We should take that seriously. He was right. That evening, we researched the laws in our state. Grandparent visitation existed, but not in the way my mother imagined. It generally applied when parents were divorced. One parent had died. A child had lived with the grandparent. Or the parents were considered unfit. We were together. Our daughter was healthy and safe. My mother had never been a caregiver. She had no established relationship beyond occasional visits. Her threat had almost no legal foundation. Still, we saved the letter. We began keeping screenshots of every message and recording every unwanted visit. I created a folder on my laptop titled Documentation. I hated how official it felt. This was my mother. I shouldn't have needed evidence to protect myself from my own mother. For several days, she went quiet. I mistook the silence for a retreat. Instead, she was looking for another entrance into our lives. Ethan's mother called me on a Wednesday afternoon. She and Ethan's father lived several states away. We liked them, but distance meant we saw them only a few times each year. When I answered, her voice sounded cautious. "Jessica, your mother called me." My heart sank. What did she say? A lot? She paused. She said, "Ethan has turned you against your family." She said, "You're emotionally unstable and refusing to let her see the baby as punishment." I closed my eyes. She told me, "You're holding our granddaughter hostage." "I'm sorry she involved you. Don't apologize." There was firmness in her voice now. I wanted to hear what actually happened. So I told her. I explained Christmas, the porch, the pediatrician, the letter. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she said those things about an 8-month-old baby. Yes, that is not concern. My throat tightened. I know. For what it's worth, I think your daughter is perfect. Her voice softened. And I think you're a wonderful mother. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. I covered my mouth because I started crying before I could stop myself. My own mother had spent 32 years teaching me that love came with inspection. Ethan's mother offered reassurance without asking me to earn it. My mother's attempt to turn my in-laws against me failed completely. In fact, it brought them closer. They began checking on us more often. A week later, a care package arrived. Inside were baby books, pajamas, snacks for Ethan, and a bottle of wine for me. The note read, "You're doing a beautiful job. Remember to take care of yourself too." I placed it on the refrigerator. My mother still wasn't finished. The next escalation happened outside Ethan's gym. He had gone there for years. Usually after work. One evening, he walked into the parking lot and found my mother standing beside his car. She had been waiting for him. He froze when he saw her. "I just want to talk," she said. "This isn't appropriate." "Then tell me where I'm supposed to talk to you. Neither of you answers my calls. We asked you not to contact us." "I'm losing my granddaughter." "You are losing access because you refuse to take responsibility." I apologized. "No, you didn't?" I said I was sorry Jessica took it the wrong way. "That isn't an apology. That blames her." My mother stepped closer. "You don't understand. She's always been sensitive. I understand her better than you think." According to Ethan, that was when her expression changed. The pleading disappeared. "You've poisoned her against me." "No." He unlocked his car. "She finally stopped accepting the way you treat her." My mother grabbed his arm, actually grabbed him. "Please, just let me see the baby once. I'll prove I can behave. Ethan pulled away. Do not touch me. People were leaving the gym now. A few glanced toward them. My mother lowered her voice. You're destroying this family. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police. She stared at him for several seconds. Then she walked back to her car. When Ethan came home, he looked shaken. He had defended me from the beginning. But until that moment, part of him had still viewed the situation as a family conflict spiraling out of control. Now he understood. This isn't about seeing the baby, he said. It's about control. I nodded. That night, we made the decision. No more temporary boundaries. No more conditions. No more waiting for an apology. Full no contact. I sent one final message. After you tracked Ethan to his gym, waited for him in the parking lot, and physically grabbed him. Any possibility of reconciliation is over. Do not contact us again. Do not come to our home. Ethan's workplace. His gym. Our daughter's doctor. Or any location, we frequent. Do not contact our friends, relative, or Ethan's parents on our behalf. Any further attempts will be documented, and we will pursue a restraining order if necessary. This is not a negotiation. I read it 3 times. Then I pressed send. I blocked her number, blocked her email, blocked every social media account I knew she used. Ethan did the same. My father sent a final text before I blocked him too. I hope you're happy. Your mother is devastated. She made a few mistakes. And you're treating her like a criminal. I stared at the message. A few mistakes. He had reduced weeks of harassment, manipulation, stalking, and attempted medical interference to a few mistakes. I didn't respond. For the first time in my life, I understood that silence did not mean weakness. Sometimes, silence was the locked door someone had earned. But cutting off my parents did not end the conflict. It exposed how many other people had been quietly suffering beside me. My brother called 3 days later. When I saw his name on the screen, I almost let it go to voicemail. Our last conversation had ended, with him asking me to apologize for the sake of future family gatherings. I didn't have the energy to hear another speech about being the bigger person, but something made me answer. Hey. His voice sounded different. Tired. I owe you an apology. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. For what? For Christmas? For not backing you up? For telling you to let it go? I said nothing. He continued. My wife and I have been talking a lot. In the background, I could hear muffled movement. Then his wife's voice. She's been doing it to our son too. My stomach tightened. My brother explained that for years, my mother had made comments about their son's weight. Too heavy, too slow, too much food on his plate. At birthday parties, she would joke that he should skip dessert. During family photos, she positioned him behind the other children because she said it was more flattering. His wife had asked her to stop more than once. My mother always gave the same answer. I'm only worried about his health. They had tolerated it because they didn't want conflict, because they wanted the children to have grandparents, because every time they pushed back, my father told them that was just how she was. I should have said something, my brother admitted. I saw what happened at Christmas, and instead of defending you, I worried about making things awkward. His wife took the phone. I'm sorry too. Her voice cracked. When your mom called your daughter malnourished, I tried to defend you, but I should have done more. I knew exactly what she was doing because she's done it to us. You did more than anyone else in that room. I said. It still wasn't enough. For years, I had imagined my brother as the child my mother actually loved. He had always seemed less affected by her criticism. Now I realized he hadn't escaped it. He had simply learned to hide the damage differently. They told me they were pulling back from my parents. Not completely. At least not yet. But they had stopped unsupervised visits with the children, and told my mother directly that comments about their son's body would end immediately. My brother gave a tired laugh. She said, "You put us up to it." Of course she did. She also said, "Ethan is controlling the whole family now." That sounds like her. Then, his voice became serious. "Watching you leave made me realize we've been teaching our kids to tolerate things we would never accept from anyone else." That sentence stayed with me. After the call, I sat alone in the kitchen while our daughter slept upstairs. For the first time, I understood that setting a boundary had not only protected her, it had exposed a pattern everyone else had worked hard not to name. A few days later, my aunt texted me. She had been one of the first people to call me harsh. Her message was short. "I've been thinking about what you asked me. Whether I would be okay with someone calling my grandchildren malnourished. I wouldn't. I'm sorry I dismissed what happened. You did the right thing." I read it twice. Then I cried. Not because I needed everyone to agree with me, but because, for most of my life, my mother's behavior had survived through silence. Every person who finally spoke the truth weakened the story she had built around herself. My grandmother called too. She didn't ask me to reconcile. She didn't defend my mother. She simply apologized again for arranging the ambush. "I thought I was helping," she said. "I know. I should have asked you first." "Yes." There was a pause. "I respect your decision, Jessica." That meant more than she probably understood. She wasn't cutting off her daughter. And I never asked her to. She was 78 years old. She had spent her whole life trying to keep the family together. Even when togetherness required someone else to suffer quietly, I only needed her to stop helping my mother break through the boundaries I had built. She promised she would. Through the family grapevine, I heard what my mother was telling people, that I had lost my mind, that Ethan controlled me, that we were keeping her granddaughter hostage, that relatives needed to intervene before I destroyed my life. Some believed her, some didn't. A year earlier, that would have consumed me. I would have called everyone individually, explaining every detail, desperate to prove I wasn't cruel. Now I felt strangely calm. The people who mattered had either seen the truth or taken the time to ask. The others preferred a simpler story. I couldn't control that. My mother was apparently not doing well. Not in a satisfying, revenge-filled way. There was no dramatic punishment, no sudden realization. She simply became more isolated. Some of her friends distanced themselves. After hearing how far she had taken things, my father grew exhausted from managing her anger and grief. She told anyone who would listen that I had stolen her grandchild. Sometimes guilt still crept in, late at night, after Ethan and the baby were asleep. I would wonder whether I had caused the chaos. Maybe I should have accepted a half apology. Maybe I should have allowed one supervised visit. Maybe I had been too harsh. Then I remembered the truth. All she had to do was say, "I'm sorry for what I said about your daughter. It was cruel and wrong." That was all. Instead, she chose pride, then pressure, then manipulation, then stalking. She had been offered a path back into our lives and rejected it because the price was accountability. That choice belonged to her. Our daughter kept growing. She started crawling with determination, dragging one knee slightly faster than the other. She pulled herself up on the coffee table and looked around proudly, as though she had climbed a mountain. She laughed at ceiling fans. She threw food from her high chair and applauded herself. Her pediatrician continued to say she was healthy, still petite, still perfect. Ethan's parents planned a visit. They video called every weekend and celebrated each milestone. as though she were the first baby in history to crawl. My brother and his wife visited more often too. Their son was gentle with her, always bringing her toys and making ridiculous faces until she laughed. She had grandparents who loved her, an aunt and uncle who protected her, cousins who would grow up beside her. She was not missing a family. She was being spared from one person's need to make love feel conditional. People may say, I ended a relationship over one Christmas dinner. I didn't. I ended 32 years of comments disguised as concern. 32 years of shrinking myself to keep the peace. 32 years of being told that pain only counted if my mother agreed she had caused it. Christmas was simply the first time she aimed that cruelty at my daughter. And that was the moment something inside me became stronger than my fear of disappointing her. I had spent my childhood hoping someone would protect me. My daughter would never have to hope. She would never learn that love meant being inspected. She would never be told to tolerate humiliation because the person hurting her was family. She would never be asked to set herself on fire to keep someone else warm. Choosing peace was painful, but pain and regret are not the same thing. I grieved the mother I wished I had. I did not regret protecting the daughter I actually had. If I had to make the decision again, I would still stand up. I would still take my baby from her arms. I would still leave the gifts beneath the tree. And I would still walk out that door. Because sometimes breaking a family cycle does not look graceful. Sometimes it looks like leaving Christmas dinner while everyone calls you dramatic. Sometimes it looks like blocking numbers, documenting visits, and refusing to explain yourself again. And sometimes the most loving thing a mother can do is become the person she once needed someone else to be.